All right, we're going to go ahead and kind of take a look at this relationship between data and the histogram. Okay, so this is something that we're going to be building on, and we're going to really get into this next week. But I want to kind of start planting the seeds on these ideas right now. So, the first thing that we want to do whenever we take a look at a set of data is we want to compare that mean and median to determine the shape of the data. Okay, so if I do this in this case, so in fact, I can kind of see that all of these here are, they're about equal. Okay, so they're kind of, so yeah, I mean, they're equal. So in my mind, then what that's telling me is that these are all somewhat symmetric. Okay. See, and that's tough because they don't look perfectly symmetric to me. Okay. So this again just kind of shows you that real data isn't perfect, but these are considered all somewhat symmetric, especially histogram C kind of looks a little skewed right to me. So anyway, so I personally kind of struggle with saying, oh, these are all symmetric, but according to this data set, they are close enough to being somewhat symmetric. All right. So, since they're all somewhat symmetric, then what I'm going to see is that the big difference between them is their standard deviation and their variability. So that's the thing that I'm going to look at next. So next, I'm going to look at the variability. Okay, and we know then that's our standard deviation. Okay, so I would look at how spread out this data is. Well, if I am just kind of looking at the histograms in themselves, they kind of look about the same thing. But if I look a little closer and I look at the scale on the bottom of the histograms, if I actually look at the scale, which, context, and in this case, the scale, so we're always looking at the labels. That there we go. That's where I see the difference in how spread out this data is. So look here, I see one standard deviation is 1.8 all the way up to 22. Now these two in the middle, they're pretty close. But luckily, I see with these two in the middle, they have different centers. Okay. So I'll get back to that here in a second. All right. So, smallest spread. Which of these sets of data definitely seems to be the least spread out? And to me, this one is definitely the least spread out. So, from that, I can tell that this is going to be my data set one. Done. Also, it does seem to be centered, around that 53. All right, which one's the most spread out? So look at this spread of this data, 23 to 123. That is definitely the most spread out. So then for me, I see that as being my data set 4. Okay. So then these two here, this one looks to be a little bit more spread out, 32 to 82 as compared to here, which may have been like 35 to 82. But but those are so close. So maybe I should then examine these centers. Which one seems to be maybe centered at 60 as opposed to 53? And in my mind, I think that this one here, D, seems to be centered at 3. So I guess I would go with 2 on this. Although I'm not so sure this one doesn't have the bigger spread, but that's just so gosh darn close. But I guess I would say this one's centered more at the 60 or 53. So this one's centered more at the 53. Anyway, so do you see that thought process that you go through there, identifying that shape by comparing the mean and the median? And we're going to see that happen here. Okay, look at all of these histograms. definitely I can see, they have different centers. Um, these two, look so similar, but yet I can see some upper outliers. So that's going to make that standard deviation bigger. But look at here. This is definitely the most varied of the pieces of data. So I kind of walk you through some of the questions of the analyzing of the uh, traits and the characteristics of that data. And then finally, here, you're going to be comparing the mean to that median. Okay. And of course, that's going to be based on the shape being somewhat symmetric or skewed left or skewed right. Do make sure that you justify your answer and that you explain why you made that choice. And then here stating your interquartile range rule, just to make sure you've got those rules down. Because here you're going to describe the distribution with your socks. So you're going to be doing basically like what we had done on the last assignment. Make sure you're thorough in writing up your shape, outlier, center, and spread in sentences. And with context. This is students flipping quarters and depicting the percentage of tails that were achieved when the quarter was flipped. Okay, so there we go. Good luck to you on finishing up this assignment so that you are ready for our quiz on the next day.